Well, welcome to Reflection on Mark once more. Again, I'm Nigel. I'm our European President of God's Squad and part of the Central UK chapter. Well, we've been looking at a little bit about Jesus subverting power, and in some sense is again subverting power in this passage. Is describing his kingship in some way, and riding into Jerusalem on a donkey. It's called the triumphal entry in Bibles, it's highlighted, and this was a triumphal entry. But we need to perhaps just make the distinction between Luke and Mark. And for Luke, we've got this focus on the triumph. But in Mark, we've got also a focus on the humility of this. So I'm going to read it, and it's Mark 11, 1 to 11. Well, as they approached Jerusalem and came to Bethphage and Bethany at the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent two of his disciples, saying to them, "Go to the village ahead of you, and just as you enter it, you'll find a colt tied there, which no one has ever ridden. Untie it and bring it here. If only anyone asks you, 'Why are you doing this?' say the Lord needs it and will send it back here shortly." They went and found a colt outside in the street, tied at a doorway. As they untied it, some people standing there asked, "What are you doing untying that colt?" They answered as Jesus had told them, and the people let them go. Well, when they brought the colt to Jesus, they threw the cloaks over it, and he sat on it. And many people spread their cloaks on the road, while others spread branches as they'd cut in the fields. And those who went ahead and those who followed shouted, "Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the coming kingdom of our father David. Hosanna in the highest heaven." When Jesus entered Jerusalem and went into the temple courts, he looked around at everything, but since it was already late, he went out to Bethany with the 12. Well, this is a really interesting passage. Jesus is going up to Jerusalem, but it's going at a certain time, so the context is important as well. This is the time of the Passover, and the Jews, the Israelites, were in slavery in Egypt, and Moses came along. This is in the Old Testament, and said to Pharaoh, "Let my people go." This is what God's saying, and he refused for a while, but eventually God sent certain plagues, and the Pharaoh agreed to let them go. So from slavery they were released into freedom, and Moses led them across the desert. And this is the context. It's a context of liberation, of freedom. And this is the context that Jesus is going in. And this is the exact same thing that Jesus wants to do for the people. So he's heading not only to Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover, but he's looking beyond that, where they'll crucify him and he'll give his life to liberate all people who come to him, who accept him. So it's the time of Passover. Well, it's a time of celebration, and people recognised him as this Messiah, as this king. They recognised the kingship, and we know that because they did certain things. So what did they do? Well, firstly, they were shouting this, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord," and coming in the kingdom of our father David. So they recognised this kingship. I think they was expecting him to take over, to liberate them from the Roman rule, but he was coming to liberate in a different way. They had palm branches, and the palm branches they were waving was almost symbolic of his kingship. And the way they laid, it says they laid their cloaks in front of him as he was riding up. And again, this is an honour to this for his kingship. So they recognised in some respects that this was a king entering Jerusalem, and for these reasons. It's also interesting the way Jesus actually came into Jerusalem. So he didn't walk with his 12 disciples, but he got on this donkey, and he put a cloak on the donkey, and he got on there, and he rode into Jerusalem. And this was really another sign of kingship. It was a prophesied act, and the people who was watching would have recognised that. They would have realised, actually, this is prophesied, and people wouldn't really ride into Israel on a donkey, because it would give this message that this is the Messiah, this is the King. And I'm going to read where this comes from. So when we read that saying, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, it's taken from Zechariah. And Zechariah would have written this 550 or onwards, around that period BC, so a long time before this actually happened. So it says in Zechariah chapter 9, verse 9, rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout, daughter of Jerusalem. And we can see that image of those people shouting. See, your king comes to you, righteous and having salvation. And again, it declares this is the king coming. Jesus was, this prophecy was revealing Jesus. Righteous and having salvation. Again, it's this image of salvation, saving the people, and this liberation. This is what Jesus came for. And then it says, gentle and riding on a donkey, on the colt, the foal of a donkey. And this is what we read in this passage. Jesus came on the colt, the foal of a donkey, and what's never been ridden. And so it's really significant. And this sense of kingship is there. And Jesus came as a king. He came at his birth as king, riding a donkey with Mary. So Mary were carrying him. And at his birth, the kings came, the three kings, the three magi came and recognised his kingship, his royalty. And at the end of his life now, as he rides into Jerusalem, is also recognised as king, but also as Messiah, as the Christ, as the one who comes in the name of the Lord, no ordinary king. And they probably wanted, a lot of the people probably wanted a king that would take over and conquer the Romans and drive them out. And but Jesus came as a different king. He came in humility, it says, riding the donkey. And even the donkey was this symbol of humility. He didn't come on a great horse with sword in hand. He came on this donkey. And he came at the time of the Passover, the time of liberation, and the time of sacrifice in some respects. So this was symbolising Jesus as this humble king. He was subverting these power structures that people was expecting. We want this king to come and liberate with violence, drive out. But he came in peace. He came in humility. And he came, he refused to take on this role as the king they expected, but came as the king with humility. Still deserving of this same respect. Still, even as a humble king, breaking expectations, still worthy of respect, worthy of worship, because this wasn't any earthly king. It was Jesus, the Son of God, fully God. And so when we remember the way Jesus came, And we need to act in the same way. We need to follow his example and come in humility, not with violence. We need to come in humility, not with pride. And so let us do that. Let us subvert the expectations of society. And the expectations of society are strength in dominance. But let's show strength in humility, which is true strength, as Jesus did. Amen.